The network lied the cast was broke and Henry Winkler knew everything ABC's biggest show was hiding some nasty secret sexual harassment claims from the very first episode stars living in poverty while executives got rich and the bitter feud that almost destroyed Ron Howard's career after 50 years. The real story behind Happy Days will leave you speechless. In the 1970s, America was going through a rough time. The Vietnam War and the Watergate scandal had left people frustrated. Many wanted to escape into the past, and nostalgia for the 1950s was growing fast. Gary Marshall saw this as the perfect time for a TV show that felt warm and familiar. He wanted something that reminded people of simpler days where families were close and teenagers worried about school dances instead of politics. His first attempt at this idea came in 1971 with a pilot called New Family in Town. Networks turned it down, but ABC decided to air it in 1972 as part of their anthology series Love American Style. The episode was called Love and the Happy Day, but was later renamed Love and the Happy Days. In syndication, the show didn't take off right away, but Marshall believed in it. He knew that a story about an all-American teenager and his family in 1950s Milwaukee had real potential to make it feel authentic. The production team paid close attention to details. They used vintage cars, jukeboxes, and period-accurate outfits. A live studio audience added energy, making it feel more like a stage play than a typical sitcom. When Happy Days finally premiered in 1974, audiences were ready for it. The show was funny, wholesome, and comforting at a time when people needed it most. At first, the series focused on Richie Cunningham, played by Ron Howard. He was a clean-cut teenager dealing with everyday life, his family, his friends, and growing up in small-town America, but Marshall knew how to adapt. Over time, the show changed it a little more into comedy, and one character quickly stole the spotlight. Arthur Fonzie Fonzarelli, with his leather jacket, motorcycle, and effortless cool, Fonzie became a cultural icon. His signature eye and thumbs-up gesture made him the face of the show. None of this would have happened without American Graffiti. In 1973, George Lucas directed a film that celebrated teenage life in early 1960s California, starring Ron Howard. It was a surprise hit, earning over $200 million on a budget of just $777,000. It proved that audiences loved stories about mid-20th century America. ABC executives saw the success and realized they had something similar in Marshall's pilot. That was the push they needed to greenlight Happy Days. When Happy Days premiered on January 15, 1974, it wasn't just another sitcom. It was a trip back to the 1950s, a time when jukeboxes, drive-ins, and leather jackets defined American culture. The show became an instant classic, and much of that success came from its unforgettable cast. Each actor brought something special, turning a simple family sitcom into one of the most beloved shows in television history. Ron Howard was already famous before he stepped into the role of Richie Cunningham. Audiences knew him as Opie from The Andy Griffith Show, but by the time Happy Days came around, he wanted to move beyond his child star image. Richie was the perfect role for him. He was the all-American teenager, a good kid trying to navigate friendships, high school, and family life. Howard wanted his performance to feel real, so he spent time studying old yearbooks and watching classic 50s shows like Father Knows Best. What many people don't know is that Happy Days didn't come out of nowhere. It started as a segment on Love American Style in 1972 called Love and the Happy Days. Howard played Richie in that episode, which helped him land the role when ABC decided to turn the idea into a full series while Richie was the heart of the show. Arthur Fonzie Fonzarelli was the sole Henry Winkler. Wasn't the first choice for the role in fact he was almost unknown when he auditioned in 1973, but his audition stood out. He didn't just read the lines. He added his own twist, delivering them in a calm, cool way before casually tossing his script in the air. That confidence won in the job. Fonzie was originally meant to be a minor character, but Winkler made him unforgettable. One of his most famous moments, checking his hair in the mirror without actually Fonzie was near his motorcycle. That small compromise changed everything. By season 2, Fonzie's popularity exploded. He became the face of Happy Days, appearing on lunchboxes, comic books, and even action figures. Winkler's performance earned him 2 Golden Globe Awards, and Fonzie became one of the most famous TV characters of all time. While the show focused on Richie and his friends, it wouldn't have worked without Richie's parents. Marin Ross and Tom Bosley played Marion and Howard Cunningham, bringing warmth and humor to every scene. Ross had already impressed producers when she appeared in the Love American Style pilot, so she was an easy choice for the role. Bosley, on the other hand, almost didn't take the part. He turned it down at first, but changed his mind after reading a touching father-son scene in the script. Erin Moran, who played Joni Cunningham, was only 13 years old when Happy Days started. She had already appeared in the Love American Style pilot, which helped her land the role. When the show became a series, at first Joni was just the typical nosy little sister, but over time she grew into a strong, independent young woman. Her relationship with Fonzie became one of the show's highlights. He affectionately called her Short Kate and treated her like a little sister, always looking out for her. Anson Williams had his own unexpected journey to Happy Days. He played Warren Potsy Weber, Richie's best friend, but on the day of his audition, his car broke down in the rain. He arrived late, soaking wet, but still made a great impression. He got the role, and over time Poi became more than just Richie's friend. He was a lovable, sometimes clueless character with a talent for singing. Don Most almost didn't play Ralph Mal. He originally turned down the role because he wanted to do dramatic acting, not comedy. Gary Marshall wasn't about to lose him. He played a game of basketball with Most's agent to convince him to reconsider. Most finally said yes, and Ralph Mal became an unforgettable part of the show. Happy Days premiered on January 15, 1974 as a mid-season replacement on ABC. It took viewers back to the mid-1950s following Richie Cunningham, played by Ron Howard, and his life in Milwaukee. His father, Howard, played by Tom Bosley, ran a hardware store. His mother, Marion, played by Marin Ross, kept the family together with warmth and wisdom. Richie's younger sister, Joni, played by Erin Moran, had a sharp wit that often caught him off guard. His best friends, Poi Weber and Ralph Maff, played by Anson Williams and Don Imo, added plenty of laughs with their antics. At first the show focused on Richie's experiences at home, school, and Arnold's malt shop. It captured the innocence of adolescence, but it also arrived at a time when America needed comfort. The country was dealing with Watergate and economic struggles, and audiences wanted an escape. The first season had 16 episodes, and even though critics were divided, people connected with its humor and heart. By the third season in 1976, Happy Days was the #1 show in America. Ratings soared, hitting a 31.5 Nayland score, proving how much viewers loved its nostalgic charm. Music played a big role in setting the tone. The first season used Rock Around the Clock by Bill Haley and his Comets giving the show an authentic 1950s feel. Later it switched to an original theme. Song Happy Days composed by Charles Fox, with lyrics by Norman Gimel, but nothing shaped the show's success more than Arthur Fonzie Fonzarelli, played by Henry Winkler. He started as a side character, but his leather jacket and effortless cool made him a fan favorite over time. Fonzie became just as important as Richie, and in many ways even more. The show ran for 11 seasons, airing its final episode on July 19, 1984. It produced 255 episodes and sparked hits, spin-offs like Laverne and Shirley and more, and many decades later Happy Days remains a cultural icon. It wasn't just a show about the past, it was a reminder of simpler times, something people still look back on with fondness. But everything was not perfect behind the scenes. When Happy Days first aired in 1974, it was meant to capture the innocence of teenage life in the 1950s. But decades later, some of its early episodes caused controversy. One of the the episode also featured a joke where Richie and Poi imagined an Eskimo becoming president and starting the World Series with a snowball, while the CBSC ruled that the comment referred to Alaska's climate rather other than indigenous people. It was still seen as outdated and inappropriate. The fact that the episode aired without any content warning only added to the criticism. Despite these complaints, the CBSC ruled that the episode did not break any broadcasting codes. Instead, they said it reflected the time period in which it was made. But the debate didn't end there. Some argue that old shows should still be aired, but with disclaimers providing context. Others believe that certain content had no place on modern television, regardless of historical value. While Happy Days faced controversy over its content, there was also drama happening behind the scenes from the start. Ron Howard's character Richie Cunningham was meant to be the lead, but by the second season, Henry Winkler's Arthur Fonzie Fonzarelli had become the star. Fonzie was only supposed to appear in 7 episodes per season, but his popularity changed everything. By season 3, ABC executives saw an opportunity. They wanted to rename the show These Happy Days to take advantage of Winkler's success. Howard was furious. He felt like he was being pushed aside, and he saw the name change as an insult to the rest of the cast. He was still under contract, but he made it clear that if they went through with it, he would consider leaving. At one point, he even thought about quitting television completely and going back to film school. The situation only got worse when reporters started asking Howard whether he felt like a second-class citizen on his own show. The media attention added pressure, but through it all, he and Winkler stayed close. Winkler saw what was happening and spoke up for Howard, pushing for more balanced screen time. In the end, the producers decided not to rename the show. They worked to keep the entire cast involved, and Happy Days continued to be a success, but the tensions were not over yet. In 2011, 5 cast members from Happy Days, Marion Ross, Anson Williams, Don Mo, Aaron Moran, and the estate of Tom Bosley, filed a $10 million lawsuit against CBS. They claimed the network owed them money for merchandise that used their images. This included lunchboxes, trading cards, DVDs, and even slot machines. Their contracts promised them 5% of the net proceeds for merchandise featuring them individually and 2.5% for group appearances, but CBS argued that the actors were only owed small amounts, between $859,000 each, mostly from slot machine revenue. The issue came to light in 2008 when the cast saw Happy Days themed slot machines in casinos. Fans assumed they were making money from them, but They weren't. Marion Ross was especially frustrated when people congratulated her, thinking she was cashing in when the cast asked CBS about the money the network admitted they were owed something but denied holding back millions after failed mediation attempts. The actors decided to sue. The case was important because it wasn't just about Happy Days, it raised bigger questions about how studios handle merchandising, royalties. Many actors sign contracts without knowing how their images will be used in the future. The lawsuit was settled in 2012. Each actor received $65,000 and CBS agreed to honor future merchandising deal. It was far less than the $10 million they wanted, but it set an important precedent for other actors in similar situations. While most of the cast struggled to get fair payment, Henry Winkler, who played F, was in a very different situation. His character became the biggest star of the show, and he had negotiated a separate deal that guaranteed him royalties from merchandise featuring his image. This caused tension among the cast. Don and Mo later called it unfair, pointing out that Winkler had been receiving payments for years while the rest of them had to fight for anything at all. But Winkler wasn't part of the lawsuit since he had already been paid under different terms. Joining the case would have complicated things. The financial gap between Winkler and his co-stars wasn't just about merchandise. During the show's run, he reportedly agreed to a lower base salary in exchange for a share of back-end profits. That decision paid off. Happy Days remained popular in syndication, and those profits kept coming. Many of his co-stars weren't as lucky. Some never received residual payments, and a few faced serious financial struggles. Erin Moran even lost her home to foreclosure. Happy Days was a huge success, but not everything that came from it lived up to expectation. The show sparked several spin-offs, some becoming hits while others faded fast. One of the biggest failures was Joni Loves Chachi, which aired from 1982 to 1983. It followed Joni Cunningham and Chachi Arola as they chased their music dreams in Chicago. Since their romance had been a big part of Happy Days, the network had high hopes. The show was heavily promoted, but audiences didn't connect with it. Critics felt it leaned too much on Robin Williams playing the alien Moore in a bizarre but unforgettable episode of Happy Day. Even Joni Loves Chachi, which ran from 1982 to 1983, added to the show's legacy for its cast. Happy Days was more than just a job, it was the start of major careers. Ron Howard, who played Richie Cunningham, left acting behind and became one of Hollywood's most respected directors, later winning an Oscar for A Beautiful Mind. Henry Winkler, after years of being typecast as Fonzie, found success as a producer and actor. In 2018, he won his first Emmy for his role in HBO's Barry. Other cast members also found steady work in television and film, proving that Happy Days was more than just a nostalgic sitcom. It was a launchpad. The show arrived at the perfect time. The 1970s were filled with political scandals and economic struggles. America was changing fast, and people needed something comforting. Happy Days gave them that. It was a version of the 1950s where family dinners solved problems, friendships lasted forever, and every challenge had a simple solution. That formula worked so well that it influenced later shows like Family Ties and Full House, proving that audiences would always love stories about family, friendship, and growing up. Critics had mixed opinions, but that didn't stop the show from earning awards and recognition. It received multiple Emmy nominations, though Henry Winkler never won one during its original run in 1978. Both Winkler and Ron Howard won Golden Globes for Best Actor in a Television Series. Over the years, Happy Days earned more than 18 wins and 21 nominations across various award shows. TV Guide later ranked it among the 50 greatest shows of all time, and in 2004 Tom Bosley, who played Howard Cunningham, was named one of TV's greatest on-screen dads.